Throughout history, military planners have viewed cities as centers of gravity. In war, cities are something to either be protected or given away, depending upon one's perspective. In today's video, I want to teach you all about the importance of planning for urban combat, which we've discussed in earlier videos as far as tactics are concerned, except this will just be a more educational look into MOUT and how to better plan for operations in urban environments. Step 1. Distinguishing features of urban terrain. Operations in built-up areas are normally conducted to capitalize on the tactical significance of a particular city. The side that controls a major city usually has a psychological advantage, which can be enough to significantly affect the outcome of a nationwide conflict. The citizens of particular regions will play a vital role in your success or failure to operate effectively in that environment. The abundance of guerrilla and terrorist operations conducted in built-up areas demonstrates the importance many insurgent groups place on urban warfare and how civilians will either favor or disfavor those particular groups. Step 2. Multiple avenues of approach. Urbanized terrain is a unique battle space that provides both attacker and defender with numerous and varied avenues of approach and fields of fire. Your urban battle space is divided into 4 basic levels: building, street, subterranean, and air. Operations can be conducted from above ground, on ground level, inside buildings, or below the ground. Buildings provide great cover and concealment. They also provide optimum perches for snipers or fixed weapons positions in a defensive or offensive posture. Street level. While streets provide the means for rapid advance or withdrawal, forces moving along streets are often channeled into alleyways and side streets for more effective cover and concealment. This is something that will slow your advance and may funnel you into possible ambush. Subterranean level. Subterranean systems are easily overlooked but can be important to the outcome of operations. These areas may be substantial and include subways, sewers, cellars, and utility systems. The city of Los Angeles alone has more than 200 miles of storm sewers located under the city streets. Both attacker and defender can use subterranean avenues to maneuver to the rear or the flanks of an enemy. The air provides another avenue of approach in urbanized areas. Aviation assets can be used for high elevation bombing of targets of opportunity or even pre-planned targets with small or large aircraft. Smaller aircraft, specifically drones, can be used in both recon missions or can attack a target. Due to their many modern-day uses, the drone has been vital in dominating the battlefield. Take note that drones have been used to great effect in open and urban environments in Ukraine. Step 3. Combined arms. From a friendly or enemy perspective, you have to consider your capabilities and limitations. What supporting assets do I have? What does my enemy have? How do I properly use my assets? Just for the sake of ease, I'll only go over the most commonly used assets you will have to encounter, which consist of infantry, armor, mortars, and drones. First, infantry units can be organized, trained, and equipped to navigate urban terrain that restricts observation, fields of fire, and vehicle movement. Combat in urban areas is primarily a small unit, infantry-intensive operation. Urban combat requires small unit leadership, initiative, lethal aggression, and skill. Understand that civilian casualties are a major concern in urban operations. However, concerns of civilian casualties and collateral damage generally decline as the friendly casualties increase. Secondly, armor is going to be your best friend when it comes to the attacking force. The Marines at the Battle of Hue City remarked that what helped them win the battle was due to the Patton tank and the M50 Ontos. Both were protected heavily by infantry. Essentially, you use the tanks to knock out enemy strongholds, and the infantry would suppress the enemy as the tank moves from its cold pause to a hot pause long enough for the tank to take a shot and then move back into its cold pause. This way, the tank is less likely to get hit by anti-armor munitions. Thirdly, mortars are the most used indirect fire weapon in urban combat. The mortar's high angle of fire allows for the round to reach the city streets accurately without being obstructed by the surrounding buildings. They are also decently light and easily mobile. I was a mortarman, and I can tell you that a very motivated mortar squad can accurately fire and move from position to position, each fire mission to avoid counter battery and stay in the fight. Counter battery is basically where the enemy can use whatever geometric nonsense they use to find out where you are firing from. This is why a good mortar squad is trained to never be in the same place for more than one fire mission. Now, at the end of the day, you have a finite amount of manpower and resources. You need to best utilize your forces in a way that allows your infantry to maneuver onto the objective while taking as little casualties as possible. This is where you see combined arms come together and utilize the proper steps for seizing an objective. You first use air, then arty, then mortars, then machine guns, and finally infantry to finish off your adversary and take control of the objective. Step 4. Time. In most cases, successful conclusion of an urban battle took 2 to 3 times longer than initial estimates. Consequently, the additional time resulted in the expenditure of more logistics and the loss of more personnel than initially anticipated. This often has adverse effects on the overall campaign. A well-planned urban defense, even if the defender is isolated or lacking in aviation, armor, or artillery, can be time-consuming to the attacker and may put up a stiffer resistance than anticipated. Think Battle of Mogadishu, and how the Army Rangers were heavily pinned down and taking casualties. In the end, the raid was unsuccessful, and the US having air superiority went from a huge advantage to a horrible disadvantage. Even though the Somalis had nothing more to fight with than AKs, heavy machine guns, and RPGs. Time will always allow the defender to reorganize, redeploy, or marshal resources in other areas. Generally, urban warfare is time-consuming. When the defenders delay the attacker longer than anticipated, it results in the modification of operational or strategic plans, putting a heavy stress load on an attacker's manpower and resources. Step 5. Isolation of the enemy and concerns for personal costs. When total isolation has occurred, the attacker will win all urban battles. While it is unrealistic to envision complete isolation of a city, total isolation does not appear to be necessary. Even the partial isolation of defenders resulted in the attackers enjoying a success rate of 80%. The key to the attacker's success is in crippling the flow of manpower, supplies, and weapons to replenish the defender's losses. The cost of conducting urban warfare is relative to the percentage of total expended resources, the time elapsed, casualties, and the results achieved. The attacker and defender must thoroughly evaluate the overall costs prior to committing an urban battle. From the offensive point of view, several factors can be associated with cost. First and most importantly, isolating the urban area is critical to the attacker's success. Second, overwhelming superiority and precise combined arms is needed if all costs are to be minimized. Third, the operation should be carefully planned. Utilizing intelligence is invaluable. Knowing where and how the city has been prepared for defense is extremely important, especially if you are on the offense. Fourth, attacking force should understand the unique nature of urban combat. Clear tactics, techniques, and procedures for urban combat are required on every level. Every aspect from taking a building to using destructive technology and coordinating combined arms must be thoroughly understood. Careful consideration of these 4 factors can minimize the cost of urban warfare to the attacker. Attacker's cost was generally high in casualties, time, and resources in the majority of urban battles. From the standpoint of the defender, the critical variable is the defensive preparation of the city. Defensive preparations should include measures to prevent isolation of the city by attackers. Preparations can include creating kill zones, clearing fields of fire, constructing casualty-inflicting obstacles, such as IEDs or other booby traps, establishing reinforcing and fallback positions, decentralizing command and control to small unit leaders, and organizing multiple movement routes above ground, between rooftops, and below ground in subway and sewer systems. Step 6. The rules of engagement. The nature of the military operation may restrict the modern army's use of weapons. The majority of urban battles since 1967 have had one or more restrictions imposed on the attacking force. 1. Minimizing civilian casualties and collateral destruction in order to avoid alienating the local population. 2. Limiting the use of specific ground or air weapons. How you decide to use your forces will affect the long-term opinion of the region and will be instrumental in your success or failure. Step 7. Logistics. It's true what they say, bullets don't fly without supply. Timely combat support, Particularly in the areas of ammunition resupply, casualty treatment, and evacuation is a critical element in Mount. Some unique items that you never thought you would need consist of rope, grappling hooks, and ladders for operations on urbanized terrain. Intense close-quarter combat requires a continuous flow of ammunition, particularly small arms, tank, anti-tank, mortar, and artillery, as well as mines, grenades, and other demolition explosives. Understand that medical supplies must be readily available to treat the anticipated high increase in casualties. Once the battle has been initiated, combat forces will require a continuous supply. Urban warfare requires a flexible and balanced logistics system capable of sustaining close quarters fighting evolutions within built-up areas. One method of providing continuous logistics support is to establish a push system. Essentially, you push supplies to the fighting units without them having to request it. A push system will negate the delays of a pull system, which requires units to request supplies, then wait for their arrival. Optimally, however, a balanced approach should be taken to sustain the engagement. It should avoid the delivery of unwanted or unnecessary supplies. To achieve this balanced approach, you must develop flexible support plans that readily adapt to the flow of urban combat. Step 8. My final observation insights. Now that we've covered all that, I just want to go over the final important key takeaways for you to have a better understanding of the complexity in planning for urban combat. 1. Mount is infantry intensive. 2. Commanders at all levels must understand the impact that the media representation will have on the long-term conflict. 3. Maneuver warfare must be applied to the environment. 4. Intelligence is imperative to succeed in urban warfare. 5. The element of surprise is a combat multiplier. 6. Armor, artillery, and aviation are effective in the outer perimeter of built-up areas for causing isolation or preventing reinforcement. 7. Artillery providing direct fire inside of a built-up area can be effective in the destruction of strong points. 8. Armor operating inside of a built-up area must be protected heavily by infantry. 9. As the force ratio increases in the favor of the attacker, combat duration decreases. 10. Urban warfare is time-consuming. 11. Total isolation of an urban defender will ultimately ensure his defeat. And finally, 12. Attack of an urban area is costly to the attacker in terms of resources and casualties. So guys, with all that being said, that's all I have for this video. I hope that it showed you the big picture of urban combat and how when many people think of fighting in highly populated areas, they only think as far as the boots on the ground aspect is concerned, but they never take time to realize all the considerations that have to be taken into account when going into an urban conflict. As we've learned in previous videos, survivability and outlasting your adversary is what truly wins wars or long conflicts. Remember to always fight smart, be able to adapt, and be lethal, especially in small unit leaders. And as always, thanks for watching.